You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Indeed, we are everywhere. We are everywhere. Excuse me. And joining me today as my co-host is the president and CEO of AUN-TV.com, Dana Allen. Dana, welcome to Conservative Commandos.
Hello, Rick. I can tell you're still fighting your cold a little bit, so you're being a trooper again.
A little bit. And yes, I am here. Yes, I am here. Doing what we have to do. But, you know, Dana, what I've felt about or have found about doing the radio show into 8 years now of doing this little gig is that the radio show is like therapy for me. Sometimes I drag myself in here like today and think, oh my gosh, how am I going to pull this off? But once the music starts to play, once John Forsythe Jr. turns on my mic, it is like therapy. It's like a shot of adrenaline. I'm starting to feel better already, so it's great to be here once again.
Well, I know someone actually has the exact same name as one of our guests today, David French. He's also in national security. He's my cousin. And he told me that when he was in Navy boot camp or whatever, you know, he'd have a terrible, running nose, right? And then they'd have to, line up for inspection or whatever. And he said miraculously it would stop running. And then after the inspection was over, start running again. So I guess your body knows you need to be in top shape or whatever for the show, so it changes things.
I just think I don't know, I just love doing this show, and it's, as I said, this is energizing to me. I get to work with people like you and my other co-host. We always have a lot of great guests on, and you know, if all doing this radio show was this 2 hours a day behind the mic, boy, I'll tell you, I would want to do it till I was 103 years old. But, there's other things in life. And Dana, I've been fighting this cold for about 10 days now, but I also have to think how lucky that I am, and that my family and myself are not in the situation of these people in Oroville, California. I mean, what they've been facing out there, is real life-threatening. When I hear about tornadoes and floods in the South and in other parts of the country, I think how lucky I really am. But Oroville, California, I know you're very familiar with that area, and we've been following the story in detail for the past week or so. Apparently things are getting better.
I got a geology degree, and I went to school at Chico State, and that's about 10 miles away from the dam. And so I used to go over and fish on the dam, and you actually get pretty good fish there. I've seen 24-inch rainbows caught right off the dam, and just from shore. And so, yeah, very familiar with it. And the thing on this one, there is some news here, to say the least, is when the problems first started developing, they had 10-foot hunks of concrete flying out of the dam, right? And they said, well, this isn't a problem. Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it when they said that. So they finally realized it was a problem. And so if people have seen the pictures, that's on the spillway, when the concrete left, it breached to the left of the water flow, and most of the water isn't even going down the spillway. It is going off to the left and digging a huge gully canyon thing in the side of the dam, or hopefully the bedrock part of the dam. So, yeah, this have you been surprised at the way they were so cavalier about this at the beginning, Rick?
Well, what I'm surprised about is why people in California are not up at arms at this. I mean, the state of California is really turning out to be a disaster there, Dana. I mean, in 1928, there was a catastrophic flood or a dam failure, the St. Francis Dam, that when it broke, 400 people lost their lives.
Yeah.
And why people cannot learn from history, I think it's because they don't know history, because history is not being taught in our schools today. They had their warning, and their warning was the St. Francis Dam. So now you got the Oroville Dam that is facing real challenges, real problems there, and there are 200,000 people that live downstream from this. And why the state of California has let this dam got to this point? No, they would rather spend their money on sanctuary cities. That's how California wants to spend its money.
You're right, Rick. It's I'm a refugee from California, and my family's there for many generations. 4 generations or whatever. They came over in the covered wagons on the Oregon Trail, but it really is committing suicide. It has some built-in advantages, such as Silicon Valley and Hollywood or whatever, but they're milking that, and eventually it's going to break, and there are companies moving out of California to Texas to Nevada and so forth, and the governor. I probably won't offend too many of our listeners here. I know several people know Jerry Brown, and they all say he's not a very smart person. It's like one of the first things they say is, Jerry, he isn't very bright, And so in his whole career, which I've followed, I can't think of a single success that Jerry Brown has ever had, and yet he just keeps getting reelected. After he failed as governor of California, then he ran for mayor of Oakland and got elected, and then Oakland became the #1 murder capital in the United States. And then now he's governor, and some of these mistakes go all the way back to his dad. That's when the dam was first started to be built. That's not really his fault. It's the response. And you're talking about that. They did not respond quickly enough to this. It's when you have the concrete liner start to tear apart, it's going to cause massive erosion. They have 100,000 cubic feet a second going down that thing. That's a mind-boggling amount of water. And like I said, I'm very familiar with this. I have a company I'm part owner in. It's right underneath the dam. It's in Oroville.
I hope you paid your insurance.
Pardon me?
I hope you paid your insurance.
Well, we rent the building. We don't have a lot that can be all that damaged. I don't think the whole building. It's the former Georgia Pacific lumber mill. We have a section of it. It's Sierra Blaster. People want to blow up anything legally without a blasting license, they can go to sierrablaster.com. But we're very close to the river, and so if it was to just the emergency spillway part break, it would probably flood our building. And of course, if the dam went, then that'd be a disaster. That would go all the way to Sacramento, because that's the highest dam in the United States.
Right. So, Dana, you're probably more familiar with this than I am. I blame it on the state of California that they have not maintained this dam. But one of the things I wanted to touch on with you in the last minute before we go to break is, okay, what about the water? California has been in a drought situation for the last 8 to 10 years. And finally, you are getting a lot of water out there, and that's part of the reason that this dam is failing. But that water that this dam cannot hold is needed by California to drink, to bathe, to irrigate, for crops, for farms. I mean, losing this lake, losing this dam, does this also mean other problems for California as far as where are we going to get our next drink of water?
The biggest problem would be if the dam itself failed. It would go all the way to Sacramento. I mean, it'd be probably the worst dam breakage disaster in the history of the world, because it is the highest dam in the United States. It's 900 feet deep when it's all the way up to its brim like it is now. So I won't even want to think of the damage that would cause. The immediate problem they have is the emergency spillway area, which is not the main part of the dam.
I get that, but what about the water? The water that is...
Yeah, it's it's not the biggest reservoir in terms of water content. I think Shasta is, but it'd be the number 2. Yeah, it would be a disaster that way. And the drought's really over. This is the highest water level they've ever had since the dam was built in the 1960s.
Yeah, but these dams, these reservoirs are built so California does have water. You know, hey, Dana, let's talk about this after the break because we're running a little long, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. Today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment and protected by the Second. Dana and I will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamb-Menier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Menier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. That second website, ccrsnetwork.com, also has information about the other great radio programs here at WNJC 1360 as part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, such as Chosen Generation with Pastor Greg Young and The Real Side with Joe Messina. But you could also hear rebroadcasts of our show on the internet at places like Leading Edge Radio Network or highplanestalkradio.com, or as a backup, and this is something that I like to use when I'm away from the studio, is I like to hear the show from my telephone by calling 832-999-1199, 832-999-1199. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You don't even need a radio or a computer, just a telephone and this number, 832-999-1199. Try it. Give it a try. Dana, before we went to the break, we were talking about the flood situation in California, the Oroville Dam. There, from what I understand, there's another storm that is hitting California, which is going to add more water to the situation.
Yep. And
it's like California, as we were talking, has been in a drought situation for the last 8 to 10 years. The water situation got extreme, very extreme. Mm-hmm. One of the things, Dana, is California over the past 20, 30 years, the population has exploded. I remember when I was a kid, I had a population of about 14 million. Now its population is like 38, 39 million. Well, Dana, all those people need water.
Yeah. And they've been, absolutely, that is the absolute truth. That's one of the reasons they had such an extreme situation there, was they were anti-development or anti-jobs, anti-dams, all this stuff.
Wasn't there a move in California that they were actually tearing down dams?
Yes, they are. Iron Canyon Dam, I believe, in Northern California, they're tearing it down, and there were these environmentalists or whatever. And sure, there are downsides to having dams, but then people need to drink water,
right?
And how did those 37 million people get into California? It's not from babies. When I was a kid, it was. I was part of the baby boom, but it's almost all immigration. And so you have these environmentalists that say that population is like one of our greatest dangers, and yet they don't raise their little finger to prevent population growth in a way that's not, like abortion or something like that. And that's simply by having tighter immigration laws, tighter immigration limits. And California today would have like 20 million people in it instead of 37 million. And have you ever noticed that hypocrisy, Rick?
All the time. Have I ever noticed? I notice it every day.
Yeah, and on this thing, they had actually a warning on the dam for 12 years that the spill was designed wrong, and they didn't do that. And I can tell you, as a geologist, on what's called the emergency spillway, which is where it just goes over the edge of the dam, well, that's part of that's bedrock there, and part of it's dirt. And if you've seen the videos, it's just massive erosion and gulling, and that's the real danger, because it's very common that you get undercutting. After the water goes over the top, it starts digging back underneath itself. Mm-hmm. And if it does that, it just take out that whole section of the emergency spillway. That would be about 30 feet of water coming down the canyon. Wow. That would take out Oroville. It wouldn't take out Yuba City or Sacramento, which are downstream, but it would take out Oroville. If the whole dam went, hundreds of thousands could die. So we should all pray that doesn't happen.
Indeed. Poor government. Government is supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
And this is, to me, in my opinion, is a huge failure of the government of California not to protect. Of all the things people want government to do today, okay, of all the useless, non-constitutional things people expect government to do, the one thing that they should do is protect the people.
Yeah.
And this is not protecting the people. This is putting the people in grave danger.
Absolutely. They're absolutely lackadaisical about this, and they had a 12-year warning where sometimes environmentalist groups can be right, and I think as a Sierra Club, they said this spillway is it's going to fail if they get too much water over it. And so for 12 years, they've had people officially warn them about the spillway, and those people ended up being right, and it could have been easily fixed, during the drought, and it wasn't, and now. The drought is totally over at this point. And in Reno, where I live, we've had flooding. And I'm a gold miner, too, as a side hobby, and I mine upstream from the dam on the Feather River. And it went to over 45,000 cubic feet a second. And to give you a concept of that, in the summer, it's 200 cubic feet a second. And about...
repeat. In the summer, it's 200 cubic feet a second,
and it's still a big river, and people kayak it.
Right. And what did it go to?
45,000 cubic feet a second. Oh, that's like 5 swimming pools going by per second. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And I know in 1997 it didn't get that high, but in 1997 it did get to, I think it was 30,000 cubic feet a second. And that's the last big flood we had. And it was, I know someone that saw it, and he said it was 40 feet deep. Wow. And this is a very fast river up in the high mountains, and it was 40 feet deep. Wow. I mean, it's mind-boggling how much water can come down a canyon if you get, a week straight of rain.
So the question that we can ask, people in California should be asking is, when they go to pick their elected officials, are they going to remember this?
No.
Are they going to remember this?
Some will, but most won't. Look at Detroit. Did they ever wake up to the failure of government in Detroit?
No.
Yeah. So, good. Well, we've got, later on, we have 2 great guests.
Dana, let's take our break now, and then we'll talk about our guest when we come back, okay?
Okay.
Trying to keep it on schedule here, believe it or not. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Avoid disappointment and future regret. Don't go away. Dana and I will be right back with more news and commentary, and we'll tell you about our guest. Be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow Patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty HealthShare offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty HealthShare offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Dana Allen, President and CEO of AUN-TV.com, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or 11 p.m., highplainstalkradio.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling us at 832-999-1199. Also, please follow us on Twitter. It's Conservative Commando or CCR Show. You can find us either way on Twitter. Also, become part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show Facebook group page. Find us at Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Dana, AUN-TV.com. You always have such interesting articles on there, and there's an article that I'm looking at now about the former presidential candidate, the former Senator of the United States, the former Secretary of State, may not have been honorably discharged from the United States Navy.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
This story has been going on for decades, and it's censored. It's just flat out censored. And you think of all the nitty picky type things that they'll go after people they perceive. I'm talking about the pretend news media. Would they go after people that are perceived to be conservatives with nitpicking little things? In this case, has been suspected since he left the Navy that he had to be pardoned. And there's a lot of evidence to the fact that he did receive a pardon as part of Jimmy Carter's pardon of draft evaders and so forth. And sort of like the records have been covered up on this. So in this particular case, in this article, and we did get this article off of the New York Sun, give credit to them for this. It does not appear that he did get an honorable discharge. It appears he got a dishonorable discharge, and there's just so much dirt they could have gotten on Kerry because, Nixon and Charles Colson, they hated his guts because he was a major propagandist for the North Vietnamese during the time of war. And being the fact that he met with the North Vietnamese in Paris during the war is probably an act of treason in itself. So it does appear, Rick, that he was given a less than honorable discharge. That's in between an honorable and a dishonorable, and it's been covered up by the news media ever since.
Also helps to have several $100 million of catch-up money.
Well, how did he get all that money, Rick?
Married well.
How many times did he do that?
Well, how many times did he marry well? I'm thinking of Teresa Heinz.
That's the second one. Do you know about his first wife?
No, not really. Educate me.
Okay, well, she wasn't a billionaire, so he, that was when he was sort of slumming around. First wife only had $400 million, and his second wife was a billionaire. So I think someone said once that, I remember...
that kind of money, Dana, will hide a lot of scandal.
Yeah, absolutely. And his
see, that's why I've been a good boy all my life. I can't afford to buy my way out of trouble.
Well, it's actually probably the best thing that James Carville ever said was he was in a debate with Sean Hannity, and he says, "Sean, you are making so much money, John Kerry's going to probably try to marry you."
Carville said that?
He did.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's never met a woman with less than $400 million that he loved.
Well, Dana, I got to ask this question. Okay, you said this has been such a closely kept secret. And as I said, this guy's been a senator. He's been a presidential candidate. He's been Secretary of State. How has it been able to, other than the obvious, as we've been talking about the money, how have they kept this such a secret?
Politics, because he was obviously being groomed from a young age to be a politician, and it just strictly, if he was not a Democrat, he would have never been able to probably been elected. And on top of that, do you know that he had his own Watergate?
No.
Again, tremendous censorship. Okay, so
well, this is why we have the American Uncensored News Network. So I say this is a good thing, Dana, that all these things have been hidden, so AUN-TV could help expose them, don't you think?
Well, thank you very much. In this case, and this happened just about the same time, within a year or so, and maybe even predated Watergate. Well, in Watergate, what it was is, all we know for sure was that his lawyer, John, who's the guy that used to be Nixon's lawyer, John
Haldeman?
No,
Yeah,
that was
John Dean?
the guy.
Haldeman, Ehrlich, and Nixon and Dean.
John Dean, you got it, yes. John Dean, all we know for sure is that John Dean told people to break into the Democratic headquarters. There's never been any evidence that ever went any higher than John Dean. And the exact same thing happened for John Kerry. So he's running for Congress in Massachusetts. His brother was his campaign manager. And there's a burglary at the Republican campaign headquarters. The police caught someone on, putting a bug onto the phone of the Republican headquarters. Who did they catch doing that? After they broke him, they caught him on the spot doing this. It was John Kerry's brother. His campaign manager was caught burglarizing the Republican headquarters and putting a bug on a phone. Did you know that?
No.
How about that?
Well, again, Dana, this is why we have AUN-TV.com, the American Uncensored News Network. These things happen, so we have something called AUN-TV, so they have something to talk about.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Rick. So how they treat this? Oh, well, boys will be boys. So it's totally acceptable. John Kerry thought it was funny that his brother got caught trying to put a bug on the Republican phone, and then Nixon does it. Oh, the worst thing since the Civil War, and it's just this huge double standard. It is wrong to do this, but both sides should be treated exactly the same when things like this happen.
Well, and you can see by what's happening with Michael Flynn that that's not true.
I know. In fact, I'm really looking forward to
are not. And you know what, Dana? We did this again. We got talking. We'll have to hold our guest until the next segment, and we'll take a break now. You are listening to Conservative Commando's radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commando's radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. Don't go away. On the other side of this break, we promise to tell you who our guests are for today and what we're going to be talking about. Don't go away. Be right back.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
there must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty Health Share. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen, President and CEO of AUN-TV.com, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast or podcast or whatever you want to call them, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Also, please follow us on Twitter, Conservative Commandos, or CCR Show. You can find us either way. Also on Facebook, please join our Conservative Commandos Facebook group page. We don't put a lot of things on there, a lot of clutter, but we put a lot of information about our shows, our guests, links to rebroadcasts, our other shows, such as Chosen Generation and The Real Side with Joe Messina. There are links to them on there, so please check us out. Well, Dana, in the last segment, you know what? We're not going to talk about it until we talk about our guest, Dana.
There we go. We have two great guests today.
Yes,
we have Brittany Hughes from MRC TV. It's a media research center, and she's going to be talking about both the illegal aliens being released by Obama in his last few days in office, and also about some hypocrisy on Trump's smartphone in relation to Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes.
And then at 4:35, we have David French. He's a very well-known expert in national security, writes for the National Review, and he's going to be talking about one of the biggest stories we have going right now, which is the resignation of Donald Trump's national security advisor. So I think we both have some questions about that. Yes. If this is selective prosecution or not.
All right, a couple of great guests. Dana, in the last segment, we were talking about John Kerry's brother led a break-in to a Republican headquarters when John Kerry was running for Congress. But it's dangerous stuff to be the brother or even half-brother or of a politician or a dictator, such as the North Korean dictator. He didn't like his half-brother too much, did he?
That's right. It's actually his older brother, and his name was Kim Jong-nam, sort of like Vietnam, and he was assassinated. This just happened, and it happened in Malaysia, and why they assassinated him? Multiple reasons. It could be that Kim Jong-un was feared him because he was the older brother, didn't want him to be considered an alternative to him to run North Korea. Or it could be that, maybe they're a little bit embarrassed by him. Apparently he's a playboy and was traveling the world and so on and so forth. And maybe they thought that maybe didn't fit the austere communist, life of most people in North Korea, so they killed him for that. Do you have any thoughts on it, Rick?
Well, the thoughts that I have, he was killed by two female assassins. You know, I find that very interesting. So, you know, when it comes to profiling, Dana, when it comes to profiling, who do you profile anymore? Anybody is potentially an assassin today. It doesn't have to be a young man with a beard or anything like that. Could be a man, could be a woman, could be children. So what I'm getting at is when they talk about profiling, people coming into this country today, hey, you know, women and children, you got to be lenient with women and children. Hey, they can also be assassins. They can also be terrorists. It was 2 women that killed this guy.
Yeah, and you know that's true. And how they killed him, Rick, was actually it's a very common communist way of killing people. It's poisoning them with like a dart. And so he felt he told the people, he went to one of the airline desk or whatever. This happened in the airport, and said, you know, I think, you know, someone sort of grabbed me, and I don't feel good. And he actually suspected that he'd been assassinated before he died. You know, there's assassin attempt on him. And so what they do is they have some poisons, you know, sometimes it's plutonium or whatever, just tiny, minute amounts of poison, and they stick it into the body of someone, you know, like using the tip of a umbrella or something like that. And this has happened multiple times. It's believed that Putin poisoned the president of the Ukraine with this method, and there was a journalist who was operating in London that was exposing Putin, and they used this very method on him, and with an umbrella, and he died, you know, 3 or 4 days later. So it seems to be part of the standard communist murder method is to poison people. So, and then I noticed reading more about this that he was Nam instead of Un, the 2 brothers. He was actually the older brother, but he was the son of the first Kim mistress, so it wasn't his wife. You know, so I mean the double standards that go on in North Korea are just amazing. Where, you know, I shouldn't even laugh. It's so horrible. Like, you know, they go around in their own private railroad cars with live lobster tanks, you know, living the billionaire's lifestyle, and they are billionaires. And at the same time, people are starving to death in the country, trying to eat the roots of trees to stay alive. The average person in North Korea is 4 inches shorter than the average person in South Korea, even though they're genetically the same. It's due to malnutrition. And so, you know, this is, you know, another case of how the elites in all communist countries, whether it's Castro or Stalin, they live like billionaires while their own people starve to death.
I'm back.
You're back. So, are you in good shape there, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so, yeah, and you have any more thoughts on this? Oh, yeah, one more thing on it. The first time, he got in the news recently was he's detained at the Tokyo airport. This is Nam. And he's trying to enter Japan to visit Disneyland under a Dominican Republic passport. And, I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, how the North Koreans operate.
Well, it was speculated while his father was still alive that he might be the successor as dictator in North Korea. Okay, and that he was bypassed for his younger brother, Kim Jong-un. Why can't they change their names to something easier to pronounce? For me?
And they do it. They do it in the opposite order that we do. So the first name is the last name, and so that throws us all. So they're all Kim Jongs.
They're all Kim Jongs.
Or Nam or
Uns, Nam.
Yeah.
Lee. Anyway.
We have another story up that I think it's our lead story right now on AUN-TV.com, and it's about that the average American commits 3 felonies a day. And, one example that's used in this article I'm aware of, which is, you probably remember Bobby Unser. I think he won the Indianapolis 500 4 times. Yeah. Well, he was involved in an avalanche while he was snowmobiling in the high Rockies, and to escape the avalanche, he went to a new area. Then he got into whiteout conditions during it was a blizzard on top of the avalanche, so he couldn't see where he's going, and his life was in danger. And I think he's lost for a day or two, but eventually, he's a smart guy, obviously. Eventually, he found his way out. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison for doing that.
What?
Yeah.
Holy
and
mackerel.
6 months. Now, I'm not sure if he served the whole time or not, but he was convicted. And what it was is they said that he'd taken an internal combustion engine into a wilderness area where you're not supposed to have internal combustion. All he's trying to do is save his life, and this, we have so many laws on the book that, things like this happen. So someone wrote a book about it. A lawyer wrote a book saying that the average American commits 3 felonies a day. They're not even aware they're doing it most of the time, but that they are. Another example is if you take a fake 6th day, and I've been very good about that when I work for other people, but I'd say over 50% of people do that.
And that's a felony? That's breaking a law rule?
That I think it's a federal crime. It's called a scheme or artifice to defraud. So, there was a case where actually Justice Scalia commented on this, that the way the law was written criminalizes a salaried employee phoning in sick to go to a baseball game. That came right from the Supreme Court, that was basically the way it was. Another example that we have in this article is that...
Well, I could say, okay, Dana, let's say this is a salaried employee, okay?
Yeah.
And they fake a sick day. Well, maybe they're making $100 or $200 a day, so they fake a sick day. Isn't that like theft?
It is, but
you
still $100. It's not a felony; it's a misdemeanor.
Well, still, it's a crime.
It is in a way, and I was very good about it. I say over 50% of the people I knew when I was working would do that.
Well, I think,
or whatever.
Well, I don't know about the 50% of the people who wouldn't do that. I would say 100% of the people I know from time to time have done something like that.
That's right. And so, what do? Do we build 50,000 new prisons and put 100 million Americans in prison? It shouldn't be.
Well, we need to do that to protect us from the criminals. Is what we need to do.
That's right.
Put us in prison to protect us from the criminals. There's so many criminals walking the streets.
There's even a case, Rick, of a church where they caught someone that worked for the church that had pornography on their PC, and so they talked to him about it. The guy resigned, and they just decided to destroy the PC. They actually got charged with it, and he's given the head of the church was given 6 months home confinement and a fine of $25,000 for doing something that he thought was the right thing.
That'll teach him. Dana, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Ellen and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Brittany Hughes, investigative reporter for MRC TV, about parting gifts. Obama released a flood of illegal immigrant kids in his last month. Be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network. Or at 11 p.m., you can log on to High Plains Talk Radio, and you can just use your phone and call us at 832-999-1199 and listen to the show. I'm very pleased to bring with us, bring onto the show, Brittany Hughes. She is the assistant editor and an investigative reporter for MRC TV. It's a division of the Media Research Center. Her reporting focuses primarily on immigration, federal waste, and government overreach. Before moving to MRC TV, Brittany was an investigative reporter for CNS News, and she lives and works in the Washington, D.C. area. Brittany, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Thanks so much. It's been a while. Missed you guys.
Oh, well, thank you. Rick and I are glad to have you back here. And you've written an article about some gifts that Obama gave the country just as he left office. Can you tell us about those gifts?
Yeah, he really is the gift that just keeps on giving. Even after he's been out of office for a month, we're still finding out things that he left us to deal with after he departed for the beach. And one of those is the fact that in his final month of office, which was December, his administration actually released another 7,700 illegal alien children into the country. This is something that MRC TV has been focused on for, I'd say, the better part of a couple of 3 years now. And it's information that the Office of Refugee Resettlement releases every single month. They release how many children they processed and shipped off to sponsors in the United States every single month. And what we see is that even though Obama had a penchant for releasing large numbers of unaccompanied children into the United States, never to be seen or heard from again, December was a particularly heavy month, 7,700 children. If you want to put that into perspective, that's about 14 D.C. middle schools worth of children. And so it just kind of encapsulates a problem that has been going on for the last several years. It's not stopping anytime soon unless President Trump and congressional Republicans can help stem this tide, which I think is definitely a concern moving forward. But it also goes to show just how brazen this last president was in terms of completely flouting the law, doing things his own way. And it's a mess that we're going to be left to clean up in the future. It doesn't just suddenly magically go away.
Right. Do you think the motivation for this is, like voter fraud or something to do with politics?
I don't know that it's necessarily voter fraud. There are multiple theories, obviously, but one of them is definitely that it has to do with a voting base. If you can bring a lot of people into this country and grant amnesty, widespread amnesty, to a lot of people who should not be living here under our current immigration law, then that definitely does help solidify a voting base. And so that's definitely one of the largest running theories as to why certain legislators actually want to give amnesty and encourage people to come here. And of course, you see people like Nancy Pelosi talking about this particular issue under the guise of helping refugees, helping people that, have a hard life somewhere else and want to come to the United States. Well, that applies to a great number of people in the world. That's not just a Central America issue. They just happen to have a land bridge with us, and it makes it easier. But, you could go to just about any country in Africa and find the same thing. And so it definitely, it is a base. It is about solidifying that. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward now that we have a new administration.
Right. Now, what are the ages of these people? Because, there's a lot of concern that, because, teenagers, both for domestic drug gangs and for the Mexican and Central American drug gangs that operate in the United States, teenagers are a major portion of the people that are actually out on the street. What are the age of the people coming in?
Well, it varies from year to year, but according to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the largest single category of unaccompanied children that come across the border claim to be between the ages of 15 and 17. If you hear a lot of liberal lawmakers talk, you think that it's a whole bunch of toddlers coming across, and it's this tragic story of 4 and 5-year-olds. And while there are some of those, typically those are not the ones that come across without a parent or a guardian. It's the older teenagers that are coming across. When I say they claim to be between the ages of 15 and 17, this opens up a whole new can of worms because they don't come across with documentation. They don't come across with identification proving who they are. So you could have somebody come across who's 21, 22, claims to be 17, and according to our current system, we process them as minors. I actually spoke to a border agent a couple of years ago when I covered this story from the border, and he said, we know when somebody comes across and they're not the age that they're telling us they are, or they're in a gang and we can tell from their tattoos. But if they claim to be a minor and we can't prove otherwise, we have to process them as a minor. So I think one of the biggest problems is not just what we know about our current broken immigration system, but a lot of things that we don't know, things that are happening because we have no way of proving who these people actually are.
I see an article that this amounts to about 250 children or maybe some adults per day. Now, do we really know when they're released? Are they just released on the street? Do we really know for sure if they're being released into a safe, environment?
No, the answer to that is absolutely not. We don't. We ship them off to sponsors in the United States, and usually these are relatives that are already living here. Many of them are also living here illegally. ORR, Office of Refugee Resettlement, does not determine whether or not somebody can be a sponsor of an unaccompanied alien child based on their own immigration status, meaning that most of these are relatives who are here also undocumented. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is we actually did an article on this just a couple of months ago. According to their own data, the administration admitted that they're only conducting home studies for about 6% of these kids. There is story after story after story. You can look this up yourself. Your listeners can go online and find this at the tip just a couple of clicks away. Story after story of these children who have been released to homes where they have been sexually abused. They've been released and nobody has followed up on them. They've been forced into child labor. This has happened. This is documented. This is a huge problem, and it kind of weakens the argument that we're doing this for these children, that we're doing this to help these children. Because if you were really doing this to help these children, why would you take them, process them, send them off, and never follow up with them where they could be exploited, they could be harmed? If this was about the children, this would not be the process. So that kind of debunks that entire argument just on its face. But there are also another way that a lot of these kids are being disadvantaged, and a lot of American communities are being disadvantaged, is because they're being sent off into public school systems that are having to absorb high numbers of unaccompanied children and absorb that cost.
Hey, Brittany?
Have English language skills.
Brittany, can I break in here for a minute? Because
Absolutely.
You just mentioned schools, and as you and Dana have been speaking, I've been doing a little bit of rudimentary math. When you talk about the cost of the schools, you say in 1 month, 7,700. 1 month, in 1 month, 7,700 underage kids were released into the United States. So I did a little math. And that would mean that we would need an additional minimum 7 schools to be built, 7 high schools to be built for these children. Now, near here, Cedar Creek High School was built about 6 or 7 years ago for $80 million. Now, that school was built for 500 students. So if you take your figures of 7,700 students to school, to build high schools for those students, you'd have to build 14 Cedar Creek High Schools at about $80 million. So that comes to way over of $1 billion in new building for schools for these children that were released in this country for 1 month.
Well, and here's a huge, huge issue, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. We did the math, and it turns out that President Obama's administration, over the last 3 years of his final term, released almost 154,000 unaccompanied children. That's enough to fill up 280 Washington, D.C. middle schools.
So figure the cost.
Well, it's ridiculous. But here's the problem. They're not going out and building new school buildings. They're overcrowded.
Oh, wait a minute, Brittany. They will. Recently there was a school district near our studio who wanted to spend nearly $75 million in new building for increased student population. So these figures are going to hit the taxpayer.
Well, they're absolutely going to hit the taxpayer.
Hey, Brittany, we got to go to a break. Could you hold on for just 2 minutes for us, please?
Sure.
Well, we do a little business. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our guest this segment is Brittany Hughes, investigative reporter for the Media Research Center. And we're coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. Dana and I will be right back to continue our conversation with Brittany Hughes from the Media Research Center.
They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
there must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
We're coming to you live. If you'd like to listen to rebroadcast today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or at 8 a.m. log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or 11 p.m. log on to High Plains Talk Radio. And you can call us at any time at 832-999-1199 on your phone to listen. Very pleased today to have with us Brittany with the MRC TV, and she's been talking to us about how, unfortunately, Obama's left us with some gifts of a huge amount of illegal alien children into this country being just released out into the public. And, as we were talking earlier, Brittany, do you know of actual cases where these children do end up in prostitution or something like that?
There have been plenty of documented cases of children that ended up in really bad situations, children that ended up being sexually abused by the sponsor that they were sent to live with, children that ended up being forced into child labor by their sponsor. I mean, obviously, these are relatively few as far as we know, but the fact that the Office of Refugee Resettlement only conducts home studies for about 6% of these children once they are released, they are not followed up with, means that we may not know how many of these children end up in bad situations. And we're talking about the ones that are children, not the ones that come into this country and are in gangs and they end up back in that lifestyle here in America. It creates a slew of problems, and we're not following up with them. As a matter of fact, we contacted the immigration courts. We do so regularly to follow up on the court cases for a lot of these children, and about 40% of them never even show up to court. And that's not even including those that are ordered removed that never actually leave. Only about 3 to 4% of these children have been deported annually by the Obama administration over the years. So you're talking about low levels of deportations, low levels of follow-ups, low levels of children that are actually showing up to court, meaning that they come across, they're processed, they're shipped off to somebody with very minimal vetting, and that's about it. And American communities that are absorbing these high numbers of unaccompanied children are left to pick up the financial burden, the social burden, all of the risks associated with this. And so I think it really, like I said before, it undermines the argument that this is helpful to anybody. It's not helpful to American communities. It's not helpful to the children that are being pushed into these communities with very minimal vetting. It's not helpful to anybody. I don't think you could make that argument and actually have it stand. It's very clear that this is detrimental to everybody across the board.
Except for possibly one outfit, would this possibly be beneficial to the Democratic Party?
Well, it could be in terms of votes. I mean, if this led to a higher voting base, if you actually got amnesty passed, that's something that liberals have been working towards for a very long time, kind of under the guise of compassion. And so I do think that that's something that, this new administration having come in, and the fact that the GOP has retained, control of both houses of Congress is something that we might not necessarily see ramp up for the next 4 years at least. But, speaking of Donald Trump, though, I think that one of the things that Americans should definitely be aware of and kind of stay on is the fact that he has yet to take a whole lot of action on President Obama's immigration orders. There are programs that President Obama enacted unilaterally, things that he set up by himself with his pen and his phone, that have yet to be addressed by President Trump. Something like DACA, for example, which grants complete immunity to illegal aliens who were brought over as children and even helps them go to college on taxpayer dime. These are things that President Trump has yet to address, and it's something that I think we need to look for in the near future, because those are the exact kind of problems that are creating this issue. If people feel that they can get across into the United States, they won't be sent home unless they're, a felon who murders somebody or something awful. Right. And they're going to be allowed to stay here, have children here, go to school here. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue.
That's right. It's a great, big, huge magnet. You don't see this being reported, what you've reported on ABC or NBC. So I'm very glad you're reporting this. Where can our listeners find this article that you've written about this?
You can find that and a lot more of our stuff. We stay on top of this every single month. You can find that at mrctv.org.
Excellent, good. And I see you've written another article, and that deals with a double standard, let's say, between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in regard to cybersecurity. And and this, I guess, is, he's famous for being a tweeter. And so there's this, reading your article, this Alanis, I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name, let's go to the senator. So you have Senator Tom Carper from Delaware and so forth, and they've written a letter to the defense secretary, saying that this is some huge national security issue. Him tweeting, is there some validity to that?
Well, this is where it gets really rich. Obviously, issues of cybersecurity are no laughing matter. People that are responsible for our nation's secrets, whether it's the president or somebody working in a House committee, there's a whole lot of people that need very, very secure devices in order to do their jobs, and that's something that is definitely very important. But what you find here is Senator Carper and Senator Claire McCaskill out of Missouri, both of them have all of a sudden become very concerned about President Trump's phone and whether or not he's communicating via Twitter over a secure and encrypted device. Now, I'm not saying that the president shouldn't have a secure and encrypted device. Obviously, that's true. But what's ironic is that these two senators didn't seem to be concerned at all over the Hillary Clinton email scandal. As a matter of fact, both of them on multiple occasions completely brushed that situation under the rug, downplayed it, defended her, and helped her campaign. So on the one hand, you have a Secretary of State who had a private email server set up at her house, kept State Department emails long after she had resigned, deleted a whole bunch of them, her and her aides, who did not have security clearances, by the way, and then turned over the rest to the State Department. It turns out that she had deleted government emails that contained classified information at the time they were sent and received. And even intelligence officials said that it was very likely that her server had been hacked by at least 5 foreign intelligence entities. So on the one hand, you have a very clear breach. You have a very clear example of someone high up in the government who is incredibly negligent, incredibly responsible with our nation's secrets. And that gets brushed under the rug like, oh, it doesn't matter. Senator McCaskill said, oh, she's just protecting her privacy, or, that's not that big of a deal. She probably shouldn't have done it. But, it's not that big of a deal. Now, all of a sudden, we have a President Trump, who these two senators do not like, and now, all of a sudden, it matters that he tweets from a secure phone because his Twitter might be hacked. So you just see such an incredible double standard, and these two senators, both of whom on multiple occasions accused the GOP of going after Hillary Clinton for her email practices in order to score political points. What in the world do they think Americans are going to see this as? This is a very clear example of trying to score political points. Going after somebody for using an Android to tweet when it didn't matter to you that a Secretary of State was sending classified emails over a private server in her living room.
That's right, because when he tweets these things, he's not tweeting things on national security. He's tweeting things that are political, that aren't, secrets at all. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for writing these articles and doing the investigative work that you've done. And once more, can you tell people where they can find your work?
You can find all of our stuff at mrctv.org. We also have a Facebook page that we would love for you to follow, and a Twitter as well.
Great. Okay, well, we have to go into a hard break here, but thank you again so much, Brittany, for coming on today. And we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM, FM 24/7.
I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, The Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or at 8 a.m. you can log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m. you can log on to High Plains Talk Radio, and you can call us with your phone at 832-999-1199 to listen to the show. I am very pleased to have with us David French. He is a staff writer at the National Review, an attorney concentrating on constitutional law and the law of armed conflict. He's a veteran of the Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he is an author or co-author of several books, including most recently the #1 New York Times best-selling Rise of ISIS, a threat we cannot ignore. He's a graduate of the Harvard Law School, past president of the Foundation on Individual Rights and Education, and FIRE, and a former lecturer at Cornell Law School. David, thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we start, just by chance, I have a relative that has the exact same name as you, and he's involved with national security, too. By any chance, do you know another David French that works for Lockheed?
I do not. There's been a Colonel David French that's been out there. There's been a Canadian playwright named David French, and there's a transgender axe murderer named David French. So there's a few people out there.
Yeah, my relative isn't the last one, I guarantee you that. He works with satellites for Lockheed, and so I just thought, just perchance, since you're both in the same area. The biggest story out, recently is that President Trump's national security advisor, Mike Flynn, had to resign. And you've written an open letter to the news media about this in regard to the use of, unnamed sources. What harm do you think can be done with what we've seen in the last few weeks?
Well, here's the problem with relying exclusively or almost exclusively on unnamed sources. It's very, very difficult for citizens to find out what's true and what's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this kind of work its way out in the news cycles in the last week to 2 weeks. So, for example, one thing that's turned out to be, looks like to be true, is that Mike Flynn was not necessarily forthcoming with the vice president in his discussion of conversations with the Russian ambassador. Well, that was something based on anonymous sources. Looks like that was likely true. At least that's why the Trump administration says it forced him out. At the same time, unnamed sources sent excerpts of a phone conversation with the president of Mexico where they claimed it made it look like Trump was threatening to invade Mexico. Well, everyone involved in that call says that's not what was going on at all. So that's a circumstance where unnamed sources were completely off. And so the problem is when you don't name your sources, when you don't have any way to judge how close these sources are to the president, how much firsthand knowledge do they have, it's very, very difficult to know the truth. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never use unnamed sources. They do have their uses, but the number of stories that I'm seeing nowadays that are completely and totally based on unnamed sources is really remarkable.
Yeah, and it creates a temptation that you can come up with anything. You can just, if you want to harm someone, you can just 100% fabricate something, not talk to anyone, and just say that you talked to an unnamed source, and who can prove that's not true.
Right. I mean, and so, for example, you'll see these things that will say unnamed sources, in speaking with a number of government officials, that sources claim. And you think, well, wait, are these Obama-era progressive career civil servants? Are they actual Trump aides? Who are they? You're just kind of at sea. You don't really know. And then that leaves you sort of trusting the reporter to say, well, maybe he's a good enough reporter to where he's not going to lead me astray. But again, that's asking a lot of the reader, and I feel like this is a bad trend. It looks like it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. And it has been, I think it is getting worse, David, and, it's gone on for a long time. I think one of the worst cases of this was, I remember Sam Donaldson and several other people would, week after week on Sunday talk shows say, well, there's unnamed sources that say that, George Bush, took cocaine regularly, when he was in the oil industry, but there's never any place, name, witness, or anything like this. And they would do this over and over again, but then with Bill Clinton, they never talk about it. And in the case of Bill Clinton, there's like 3 eyewitnesses that said they watched him take cocaine, and they gave the times and the places, and his brother was convicted and sent to prison for being a cocaine dealer, etc. So in one case, you actually had the evidence, and it wasn't discussed in the news media. And then in the other case, there's no evidence at all. But then they put out, so then if you ask people, what presidential candidate, supposedly took a lot of cocaine, they'd probably say George Bush and not Bill Clinton. So,
well, I don't know anything about, those kinds of things. What I do know is that we're in an era right now where it looks like there is a battle between the Trump administration and the intelligence community, or at least some segments of the intelligence community. And that's a very dangerous development. And so you have several reporters who are apparently clued in with elements of the intelligence community, and they're being fed stories. Now, some of these stories do detail what could be improper conduct. Some of them don't. It's just really, really hard to know. And that's why when we're talking about really important issues like Russian involvement, alleged Russian involvement with Trump administration officials or things like that, you got to have a true investigation, not trial by leak. And a true investigation means subpoenaing witnesses, getting people's testimony under oath, disclosing taped telephone conversations or transcripts of taped telephone conversations, and doing things the right way.
That's right. In this particular case, supposedly, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's the FBI had intercepted this call between Flynn and the Russian ambassador, and then, that what was in that transcript was leaked. Is that basically correct?
Well, what we don't know exactly who intercepted the conversation, but I don't believe that a full description of the transcript was leaked. Just what was leaked was, in essence, that he talked to the Russian ambassador and talked about sanctions.
I see.
And so we don't know exactly what was said. We don't have that at all. I mean, we have what Mike Flynn says was said. We've had what the leakers say was said. Let's hear the tape. Let's hear it. Let's see what was really said.
Got you. David, we have to go into a commercial break, but can you hold with us? Because I'd really like to ask you some more questions.
Sure. Be happy to.
Oh, excellent. Okay, we're coming to you live from Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM, FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, "All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent." Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or at 8 a.m. log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m. you can log on to highplanestalkradio.com, and you can listen to us on your phone at 832-999-1199. This is your host, Dana Allen, with my co-host, Rick Trader, and we are pleased to have with us David French from National Review. David, we've been talking about the hot topic today, which is the resignation of National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. On this, you believe that he did have to go because he was caught lying. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that's certainly what the administration is saying. Here's what the core concern seems to be: did he mislead the FBI when questioned about his conversation? Did he mislead Mike Pence when preparing Mike Pence to talk to the public about this issue? And those seem to be the core questions. And if the answer to either one of those questions is yes, then his resignation is entirely justified.
Mm-hmm. Now, you something that I wanted to ask you about, you've already brought up the topic, which is there's this conflict that has happened, and part of it actually on Twitter or whatever, between Trump and what you call the national security apparatus, the United States, the FBI, CIA, etc. And that does seem to be a factor here. Trump did say some provoking things, about the CIA, and I was looking at the Drudge Report, and I think the first 5 headlines at the top of it are about that this was a retaliation for Trump attacking, let's say, the CIA. Do you think that is a factor in this?
It could be. I think that Trump has attacked the intelligence services. Well, you don't think that. You know that. He's tweeted at them very aggressively. And in some ways completely unjustifiably. I mean, for a long time he really attacked the contention that Russia was trying to interfere with our election, and in spite of the fact that there's overwhelming evidence that it had. So, look, but here's the deal. Even if a president tries to pick a fight with the intelligence agencies, that doesn't give intelligence agencies license to break the law by leaking classified information. Both sides really need to stand down from this fight, though. I mean, the President of the United States openly mocking intelligence agencies and unjustifiably doing that is wrong. Intelligence agencies leaking classified information to undermine the President of the United States not only is wrong, it's possibly illegal. So we're in a situation here where two things seem to be happening at once. There's a large number of improper leaks, and at the same time, there also appears to be some improper or untruthful activity going on within the administration. So, for example, Sean Spicer yesterday denied that there was any contact between Trump campaign officials and Russian intelligence operatives during the campaign. Said that didn't happen. So what happens next? Leaks come out saying that there's proof that there was contact. Now, we don't know what that contact was or if there was anything illegal about it or improper about it. But the problem is when the Trump administration says something that's not truthful, it's courting and asking for these kinds of leaks to come up. And so both kinds of improper activity need to stop.
In that particular case, did they actually provide the proof that there was contact, or they just say that unnamed sources say there was proof of that contact between Trump?
It's this anonymous sourcing that there is. So that's why this has to be investigated in the proper method so that you actually see proof of the content. Now, it would be highly unusual for a source to go to a reporter, a mainstream reporter, and say, we have evidence based on intercepts and call logs and other things of contact, when they're just completely making that up. But what they did say was, we have evidence of contact, we don't have any evidence of collusion. And that's a very important distinction.
Sure.
That contact, especially since Trump had hired some people who had prior business dealings in Russia, contact under those circumstances is not necessarily wrong. The thing that would be wrong would be collusion with Russian intelligence, and that's what they say they don't have any evidence of.
Right. Now, do you think there's other parties that would have, motivations maybe to aid and abet this conflict that has occurred between the administration and the intelligence community, and that would be, let's say, people like the New York Times and Washington Post, ABC News, etc. I don't think that they would, break down in tears if a fight broke out between Trump and the intelligence services. They're not particularly partial to either party, and they probably would like to see a fight between the two. So do you think this is maybe being egged on a little bit?
Oh, I mean, there's no question that the mainstream media is the eager, ready, willing, and eager recipient of any leaks that it can get its hands on, and is even responsible for passing on some of the least credible of these leaks. So, yeah, I don't think there's any question that it's being egged on, but this is old stuff. I mean, everybody eagerly lapped up the WikiLeaks revelations, even though they were based on unlawful hacking and leaking through Russian intelligence. People always are eager to share information they gain through leaks. That's what the press does. That's why you have to. That's why the leaking has to get under control. The free press is always going to jump on leaks, always. So that's why the leaking has to get under control, and there has to be adult supervision of these agencies and of the White House, and investigate all of this properly.
Yeah, in the case of WikiLeaks, I've actually read a lot of them, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this. The fact that they know it's specific. It's not like these unnamed sources or whatever. This is supposedly an email between this person and that person on this date. Here's all the text. And it seems that it's true because I've never really heard it denied by the parties. Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what's true about WikiLeaks is that there was an unlawful hacking of DNC computers that resulted in the leaking to the public of actual emails. I mean, nobody's really said that these emails were made up. So the hacking was illegal, the emails were real, the information was embarrassing. There's always an audience for information, always. But, there's also a responsibility of people in government not to share classified information, especially to advance a political agenda.
Right. In terms of replacing Flynn, one of the names that's been thrown out there is David Petraeus. Do you have any opinions on whether he'd be good for that position?
I think he would be a terrible choice for that position, not because he's not a talented leader and informed and knowledgeable with a outstanding record of public service to the United States, especially during Iraq at the surge. It's because he broke the law. He violated the trust of the public. He betrayed his family. And, his plea deal, in fact, I think is one of the factors that led the FBI not to charge Hillary Clinton. This is a guy who gave classified information to his mistress. That classified information wasn't just innocuous, small-time information, but very highly classified information. Some of it was kept in her house, unsecured. Some of it was kept in his house, unsecured. And then when asked about it by the FBI, he lied to the FBI. Mm-hmm. That's intolerable.
Hey, David, I'm sorry. I have to jump in here because what you're accusing David Petraeus of, and I can understand, is exactly what we could accuse Hillary Clinton of. Yet over 60 million people voted for her for president.
Right, of course.
Excuse me, but can you see the irony of this?
But if you're somebody who didn't want Hillary because of that...
Well, that and a whole bunch of other reasons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. David, in the case of Hillary Clinton, I really think that if her name was Sally Smith, she would have gone to prison over that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the sad thing is, with Petraeus, if his name was Captain Petraeus instead of General Petraeus, and if this was a military prosecution rather than a DOJ prosecution, he would have gone to jail. As it was, he got 2 years probation and paid a fine. And there was reporting at the time that the FBI made the decision not to recommend Hillary Clinton for prosecution, that the Petraeus plea deal cast a long shadow over those deliberations. Because there, in the Petraeus situation, there was very strong evidence that he intentionally and improperly shared this classified information. Whereas the FBI didn't see that same evidence of intent with Hillary Clinton. Now, never mind, the statute didn't require evidence of intent, just gross negligence.
Right.
But the problem was, here they had a situation with this general with all of the evidence that they had, and they gave him probation, a plea bargain of probation.
Hey, David, we have to run. We're right up against the end of our show. Could you please tell our audience how they could read your articles and follow your work?
Sure. nationalreview.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at David A. French.
David French, thank you so much for joining us. Take care. God bless.
Yeah, we have to have you back,
guys.
David. Fascinating stuff.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
Dana, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. I also want to thank our other guest, Brittany Hughes from the Media Research Center. Also want to thank Mr. John Forsythe Jr. for working the boards. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
1360 AM. WNJC. Washington Township, Philadelphia.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.